Hi everyone. Today is going to be a React video where we will be analyzing Alien Earth, its official trailer, which came out a month ago on June 5th, as well as Alien Earth official trailer number 2, Greener World, which debuted 16 hours ago. Before we get started with that, here's a little information about me. My name's Persephone van der Waard. I'm a male to female trans woman, Gothic ancom, they, them, or she, her, poly demipan, 39, anti-fash, and multi-volume book author and illustrator, sex worker, indie researcher, PhD in Gothic poetics and Ludo-Gothic BDSM, who specializes partly in Metroidvania, erotic artist, pornographic historian, and invigilator, loves Amazons. My channel on YouTube is specifically short-form, safe-for-work content I can actually post here, e.g. React videos, but also essays written elsewhere. Everything is produced by me. I do not use or endorse AI. Billionaires suck. Free Palestine and all colonized lands. Abolish ICE, cops, and the state. It's all in the reflexes. Disclaimer. All opinions are my own, i.e. as part of my research, conducted alongside my book series, Gothic Communism. The material within is written/speaks about public figures and popular media for purposes of education, satire, transformation, and critique, hence falls under fair use regarding copyright and free speech regarding defamation. And if you want to support my work, you may follow the link below to my link tree, which includes Cash App, Patreon, PayPal, Ko-fi, etc. So there's some different ways that you can support my work. And also, incidentally, if you enjoy my work, you can like, share, and subscribe, or leave a comment in the comment section, preferably constructive criticism. I enjoy feedback. And with the topic of today's video, I would be interested in knowing your thoughts on these trailers. Do you find them exciting? Do you think they look dumb? How do you feel about Ridley Scott producing the show, but it being helmed by someone else? Similar to Alien Romulus, for instance, which a lot of people enjoyed, but some people had some criticisms about that as well. So let me know what you think. In turn, I'm going to let you know what I think now as we watch both trailers, and then I will break them down bit by bit. We'll go through each trailer again. They're relatively short, so I should be able to do that. We'll go over basically a frame-by-frame analysis. And then I will talk about their post-colonial and neoliberal critiques, as is tradition in an Alien film. Essentially, how woke are they? Alien was a very woke film in 1979, and that tradition has been essentially kept alive throughout the franchise over time to varying degrees of cautionary, sci-fi, retro-future, dystopian narrative. And I'm curious to see this film TV show, actually, I forgot. It's not actually a movie, it's a TV show. Seems like it has a similar tradition. So we'll be doing that at the end, and I'll sort of break out my, Gothic expertise, and we'll analyze things from a thematic standpoint. But really, for right now, the beginning of the video, it'll be more of a textual analysis. So let's get started. Hi, this is Persephone from the future. I have recorded the entirety of my response to Alien Earth, the first and second trailers. And now that I got through the entirety of the recording, because this was unscripted, initially I provided some early predictions about how I was going to talk about this, but I changed my mind partway through. And initially my prediction was that I would give my thematic analysis after the textual analysis, the play-by-play. I would sit down and break down the themes. But to save time, I did both at the same time. So instead of there being a section at the end, which is dedicated to a thematic analysis that's separate from the textual analysis after I break down the trailers, I just talk about the thematic stuff as I'm doing a textual analysis, frame by frame, basically, for both trailers. So as far as that goes, that's just the difference of the video. I don't feel like going through and editing out all of those changes, so I will talk about my original plans and you can watch them evolve yourself. But I'm going to front load things with how it actually turned out, just so you're not super confused. Okay, so first up is Alien Earth official trailer. I have seen this before. It's a good sized trailer. It's not too short. It's not too long. It's about 2.5 minutes. Let me make sure it's not too loud. All right, and here we go.
10, 9, 8, 7.
I just want to say that everything I hear and see in this looks awesome.
2, 1.
How's our girl?
She's ready.
You're gonna be the first person to transition from a human body to a synthetic.
Because I'm special.
That's right. You're very, very special.
I like that they're exploring the android themes a bit more, telling a story, a post-human narrative, from someone who was human, who made the transhumanist transition to an android body.
It's what's on that ship?
Man versus machine, or machine versus nature in service of corporations. She's an assassin, ninja, what have you.
It's
a
like a zoo, but
mercenary.
the animals got out.
This ship collected 5 different life forms from the darkest corners of the universe.
So he's Victor Frankenstein's character. They find him in the Arctic or on a derelict vessel. Really, just to pause it real quick, there's so many different things happening. I'm going to try and comment on things as we're watching it, but really this is just to give you, everything in this is good, but we'll break it down here in a moment. There's just so much cool stuff thematically and textually. I'm not seeing anything I dislike. That reminds me of Deliverance. You have the pulse rifles and the black mercenaries. I love the photography, the slow pull away from, there's a lot of good
Invasive
cinematography.
species.
I love the sirens from the
Predatory.
original
We don't lock them
1979
down.
trailer, plus that pulsing sound. There's a lot of different characters, human
Never
or
be too
otherwise.
late.
The props all look good. I don't know, it just looks cool. Yeah, and again, like this kind of thing, it's featured on FX and it's hosted by Disney, I guess. So Hulu on Disney Plus, and then FX. So again, it's a TV version of Alien, which to my knowledge, Alien has largely been a cinematic universe with quite a few video games, but I can't recall specifically there ever being a TV show. Not one that leaps to mind anyways. There's certainly been plenty of homages and things like that. But yeah, I'm not anxious about this at all. Some people will be like, oh, can you critique capitalism if it's corporate? Well, that's the nature of allegory, right? It's the same idea with Star Wars. Whatever critiques we have of capital occur within capital. So I'm not automatically turned off on something because it's popular media made by a big company. Andor was made by a big company, and it's a wonderful show. So different filmmakers, showmakers, what have you, can put allegory within their stories, darkness visible, metaphors, various narratives, textual, thematic, what have you, that are able to basically critique capital through a once upon a time in a galaxy far, far away. It's dark Star Wars, kind of. And I think, based on what I'm seeing in this first trailer, that's what we're going to be getting this time around. More so than Romulus. This looks much more in tone with Ridley Scott's film than Romulus did. And I thought Romulus certainly had moments where it approached that, and definitely the latter-day Ridley Scott films. But this one feels like a nice homage to that 1979 original by Scott. So that's a good sign. I feel very confident. Okay, so let's watch the second trailer and give you my thoughts and feelings on that. All right. Alien Earth official trailer number 2, Greener World. This one is a trailer, but it's actually almost a minute shorter. Completely different tone.
If I'm not human,
Happy music.
what am I?
Did you even think about
This kind of gives me Ghost in the Shell vibes a little bit, and I have to wonder if the character arc, she's going to start out working for the company, and then
was
she,
it blue
I
skies
don't
from
know, bonds with the creature somehow.
Did you see the world?
I will say the spaceship effects look kind of made for TV, but a lot of the photography and stuff looks good. But yeah, shots like this obviously are going to be
This ship
the pyramid inflated
collected
pyramid.
specimens. 5 new life forms from distant planets.
It's almost a Stranger Things feel.
Monsters.
The Demogorgon and some of the monster variety. Like this is
We
a
don't
creature
lock them
feature,
down.
but they specifically have different creatures.
It will be too late.
It's like planet Earth, but everything's fucked up. And the alien is like a troglodyte. I love it too. Yeah, it's like planet Earth, but it's alien Earth. I think if David Attenborough doesn't make a cameo in this, they should totally do like a David Attenborough spoof where it's like the most incredible creature in nature, unclouded by conscience, remorse, or delusions of morality. I can't lie to you about your chances, but you have my sympathies. That would be so cool. Like, and honestly, you know, they could put his head on a table like Ian Holm in the original Alien. Hell yeah, that would be so cool. But that's so those are my vibes for, you know, Alien Earth, the second trailer, a greener world. Basically the Imperial Core is leery of collapse, and it is a lot of this has to do with invasion fears. A lot of this has to do with the fact that, you know, America, the West, what have you, capitalism is built on genocide, of exploiting nature, and in trying to take nature's power from it, which is literally, you know, the plot to Frankenstein, which, if you've seen Ridley Scott's latter-day films, those films allude to that, but those allusions are speaking to things that the first film back in 1979 was talking about, you know, At the Mountains of Madness, but also Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, going to a frozen waste, going to a faraway land to harness the power of the gods, to take from a colonial power something to bring back to the mother country, but through colonial collapse, which is basically dressed up in such a way to present it like the story of Ozymandias. What ends up happening is that the collapse of the colony, the imperial boomerang, brings Ozymandias back home. Nature reclaims what has been colonized at home, because home is an imperial colony too. These are inheritance anxieties. These are anxieties about authenticity, about legitimacy, about being colonized by the powers that be, the goddamn company. What about our lives, you son of a bitch? So this kind of story, the chickens coming home to roost, when I see the xenomorph in the cave at the end, it's in its natural habitat for the first time, except it was made in a jar, but it has been made to survive in environments where man no longer can. The alien is coming to what it has been alienated from in a way that it can survive and outlive the people that have become alienated themselves from nature. The bourgeoisie and workers more broadly are alienated from nature in a way that is made in a jar, and that imperial boomerang brings the creature back home, per all of the anxieties that I just mentioned, and it finds itself in a world where it can survive. It is with great difficulty that I try to recollect the origin of my being. And you have this killer infant that finds itself out in the dark forest, out in the caves, but it is able to survive because its creators, through their own venal hubris, designed it that way. And that Ozymandias sort of apocalypse is basically what the Alien franchise is exploring. So these are concepts that we'll talk about a bit more at the final section of this video where we go over the thematic stuff. But just this trailer is able to communicate a lot of that stuff to me. Admittedly, I'm an expert about this kind of stuff. I've written multiple books about demons, the undead, and various themes that the Alien franchise has explored from the very beginning. I have multiple essays about Ridley Scott, about the Alien franchise, critiquing James Cameron's Alien universe, critiquing Ridley Scott's Alien universe, talking about the Alien prequels, talking about Mary Shelley's Frankenstein and connecting all of that together. So there's a lot of stuff like that. Also, one other thing I wanted to say is that seeing the creature in the cave, the xenomorph is basically like a killer mushroom, right? The penis-headed monster, but also the mushroom-headed monster. Mushrooms are usually an analog for, the phallic imagery. They're very Freudian. They're tied to death. They're tied to rebirth, fungi, decomposers, the space between the living and the dead. They're not really animals. They're not really plants. There's something in between. But they're also chimeric. They're fetishized. They're tied to ancient gods of resurrection, of sexual power, of domination. R.E., Giger and his approach to things. The idea of the mushroom is like psilocybin and a bad trip. That's what Alien is, right? It's a bad nightmare. It's that Radcliffean nightmare, the Imperial Castle coming to Earth like a bad dream, right? The crashing of the helmet from the castle of Otranto, earthbound, and carrying a fatal cargo that haunts, in this case, a post-human Gothic heroine. The Amazon is literally made in a laboratory. So it is basically the corporate technology, the corporate simulacrum, versus the faraway Ozymandian simulacrum. And there's all kinds of cool shit going on. There's way more going on in here than in Romulus. And Romulus actually had a bit, but I thought it was a little bit more focused on, this specific group of characters. They talked about the colonial stuff. They talked about Fire of the Gods a bit. But here, there's a lot of different things. There's just a whole gamut of stuff. And I imagine that's how TV shows work, right? They're able to explore all of these different themes, whereas a movie can only do 2 hours worth. This show, I don't know how many episodes there are. And they have Alien Earth FX. So they have that too. I'm going to have to do more than one. We're going to have to do a video series. But yeah, so that's my basic impressions of Alien Earth official trailer 2. Both trailers look good. I'm super enthusiastic about this, but now I want to break them down. So let's do that. So first, I guess since we have Alien Earth official trailer 2 up, and we watched it more recently, and it's just in front of us, why don't we break it down first? So the first thing I want to say, and I'll basically, for this section of the video, we'll be doing basically a frame-by-frame analysis, analyzing the visuals and the sound, and just whatever leaps to mind, so that Isle of the Dead, that famous painting, which Ridley Scott in Alien Covenant actually emulated, I'm kind of getting that vibe, right? Okay, there's Charybdis and Skyla, there's that narrow sort of passageway, but there's this treacherous strait. I'm kind of getting that. You have the wide open sky, you have the jungle, and this passageway to the gods, and the idyllic music. It's a sylvan scene, out of Milton's Paradise Lost, which again was something that was explored not just in Ridley Scott and Alien Covenant, but also Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. So this all tracks. It would be very, very strange for them not to have a jungle-like world in a story that's based off Frankenstein. Though, of course, in Alien, that's the story of Ozymandias, right? There is no jungle anymore. It's hyper-real. But here, is this the faraway alien planet? Also, I'm an identical twin, so you have basically the cancer child who's hooked up and kept alive through technology, who's being transferred to a synthetic body, and they're holding hands, so this is the glass womb, and you have the dying twin holding the flower who's transitioning to a man-made female Pinocchio, basically. And so this kind of thing gets me a little bit more, just because I've heard stories about twins that will consume their sibling in the womb. That's kind of what this makes me think of. There's transhumanist themes. There's that ghost in the shell kind of variety. Will she retain her memories after she transitions into basically the Major from Ghost in the Shell? Because here she kind of reminds me of the child There Is No Spoon from The Matrix, and here she's the Major. And she's dressed in kind of old-timey Victorian underwear. You can show a little bit of calf, a little bit of ankle, but nothing else. And the striped pattern and stuff like that. The production values, like for a made-for-TV kind of thing, obviously, like the spaceship shots look kind of computer-generated, but everything else, like this set, looks great. I love it.
I'm not human.
She said that she's not human, but she has human origins, so maybe this is the amnesia that she has. But that scene from Ghost in the Shell, where you have memories of what it was like before you were born, where you're remade in this case, because the Major had some brain cells in a skull, but that was the only thing that really was biological of them. Everything else was completely synthetic, and the only thing that made them human or feel human was how they were treated. And her eyes open, so that Ridley Scott obsession with the eyes. And here, instead of having blue eyes, we have brown, or kind of brown eyes, hazel eyes, and lovely photography here, and the voiceover.
What am I?
But am I human? Yeah, so this is very Ghost in the Shell. This is very transhuman, post-human. I love it.
Did you even think about?
And the music I don't recognize. In Alien Covenant, they use Country Roads. That ironic kind of music, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star in Alien Resurrection or Dead Space. Here, I'm not familiar with the music per se. The spaceship shot, in the original Alien, and they had that Star Wars kind of approach to filming a little miniature moving through space. Here, it's completely computer generated as far as I can tell. I'm not a huge fan of that, but again, it tracks with the made-for-TV approach. And just looking at like certain shots, you have the slow tracking shot moving towards the door, very common shot in Alien, in particular, the belly of the beast. Though the beast is literally the castle itself, the voracious black castle. Here, things have gone to pot, they've gone to seed. You have hanging chains, meat hooks, so it has kind of a freezer-like effect. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Jurassic Park, incidentally, so it's sort of a crossover, though Jurassic Park was basically riffing off of Alien, incidentally. It turned Alien into what if this were an amusement park. So here, in any event, you have the cargo, you have the slaves, so the Nostromo from Alien was the name of a Joseph Conrad novel. The Narcissist was the name of a short story, An Escaped Slave. So there are slaving narratives, right? It's not just Frankenstein in making labor, but viewing labor as something that you can make or you can reduce to the sum of its parts, and it rebels. So the cargo isn't just things that you've grown in a vat, but literally labor rebelling in a satanic, Miltonian kind of way, which is exactly what Shelley was doing, and, to a certain extent, what Scott was doing. Now, in Scott's case, you had certain rape phobias, white women being afraid of black escaped slaves, essentially escaped from hell and stowing away the eighth passenger, right? Similar kinds of things going on here. Visually, the presence of green, you have the computer screen, but also whatever the heck is behind that door. It kind of reminds me of a banana republic. Same idea. What happens when nature fights back, when the cargo fights back? Slaves in the Middle Passage were cargo, and when they started to fight back. So there are all these things existing in the same phobic space, the same castle narrative. I like this. This kind of reminds me of the underbelly of the Nostromo, the upside down dome kind of design. And there's a breakaway, right? This guy has some kind of Pistol, he obviously reminds me of Yaphet Kotto from Alien, minus the blue headband, though he does have the blue pistol. Kind of reminds me of the charge pistol from Unreal. I don't know if any of you ever played that game. That's sort of the vibe I'm getting. It looks like a stun gun. Blue, in Star Wars, set your weapons to stun when they shoot Princess Leia. Blue is often the color of stun. Red is often the color of kill.
Did you see?
I love the photography, the rim lighting. The sets here look kit bashed. That's an actual, set of Mother behind her, as far as I can tell. I mean, these days, the technology and with AI and stuff, they could probably do something pretty convincingly. But if you wanted to have something in the background, but it looks like a real set. It's photographed. This, the least impressive effect shots are definitely the spaceship. So this is the stowaway vessel, Dracula, right? The Demeter, it's carrying a fatal cargo. It's bringing Dracula to England, Frankenstein to Germany. Same idea. And the special effects shots aren't the best, but they are definitely, they're passable. They're good enough for TV. But then we have these outdoor shots that look much more convincing. Like the jungle doesn't look fake. And she's, as far as I can tell, she's the android. She kind of has the same bowl cut that Cull had from Alien Resurrection. Or there was an android from the Blade Runner remake that had a similar haircut. That androgynous, non-binary kind of vibe. Kind of doll-like in a way that is very androgynous, is very, again, non-binary, gender non-conforming, is kind of in this liminal state where she has left her body born of the womb and she is in a robot body that was made in a factory. And, she looks very calm, very still. These characters look more anxious, frazzled, and she's cool as a cucumber. So the crash landing, okay, the least impressive kind of stuff, but this is telling a story. The shipwreck is no longer on LV-426, but on Earth, and history is repeating itself. The Imperial Boomerang. This is the Imperial Boomerang bringing the invader home, the enemy within, right? And suddenly there will be a moral panic. Corporations have to contain it because they're not just containing some kind of scapegoat, but they're containing their own crimes. Fire of the Gods is literally the crimes of Holocaust, and they're going to try and cover that up, but they're also going to try and weaponize it, and they're going to do imperialism at home through a corporate body. So I want to say, this looks like a real vehicle. It kind of reminds me of the armored personnel carrier from Aliens. This looks like a real, shot. And you have multiple vehicles, actually. And the cross-cutting and stuff like that. The World Trade Center, 9/11 kind of thing. Some of these buildings look, old. This has a retro future kind of look. Some of them look kind of glassy, futuristic. Some of them look older. And then again, that 9/11 vibes. You have this yellow vehicle, just the yellow versus the blue kind of grayish background, with I'm not sure what color these lights are. I would imagine they're red, but maybe not. But in any event, it's a nice use of color design. It's a wonderfully. I think you have a little bit of green there in the background. And then you have the pyramid, the Blade Runner kind of pyramid. So again, imagine if Weyland-Yutani, the replicants, the xenomorphs are basically a kind of replicant. They're a simulacrum. They're something that was made by a rival empire or civilization, the Ozymandian Empire that's gone to seed. And the current corporations are basically trying to cannibalize that. But then the technology comes home, the secret gets out, the cat's out of the bag, Pandora's out of her box, Medusa's head sails home, that kind of thing. And it crash lands. The pyramid, again, isn't on LV-426 like in Alien. Originally, it was supposed to be like this pyramid kind of thing, which you see in Prometheus. There's an homage to some of the art that Geiger had designed originally instead of there being a pyramid on LV-426 or in Prometheus where they had pyramids, there's a pyramid at home. There's a duality. Per the Imperial Boomerang, Ozymandias comes home to roost. The Empire is in decay. So all of this symbolism, it might just seem like, oh, it's just a sci-fi story. Wrong. This is all allegory.
Ship.
Not a super huge fan of this particular shot, but it looks like the ship crash landed into a human building. They're kind of looking at it.
Collected space.
Yep. Okay, so Yaphet Kotto vibes. Imagine Yaphet Kotto with a beard. The way he's talking, he's like, son of a bitch is big. Son of a bitch is huge. It's big. It's like a man. So he's the survivor of the shipwreck, as opposed to it being Victor Frankenstein. We literally have a member of the corporation, someone who's a person of color, the token character essentially, who has lived to tell the tale and is, I imagine, relaying the story to the protagonist or the audience in any event.
Specimens.
And this is where I got the Stranger Things vibes. I don't know if this person's an android, but just the white hair, it really reminds me of that father character from Stranger Things. And you have people in tow, basically the mercenaries. He's Virgil leading Dante through hell, basically.
5.
The killer banana, what happens if the Banana Republic goes to seed and the crop that they use to harvest, and the analogy or the metaphor between the crop is literally a fruit and people treated like crops, like slaves essentially during the Middle Passage, but also the xenomorph is a creature made by God, Satan, right? But it's this imperfect copy of God's shadow, God's id, and it comes alive and attacks. In Body Snatchers, similar kind of vibes. There's been so many different monster movies made since Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein, since Ridley Scott directed Alien for that matter. A lot of Satanic Panic from the 1980s, a lot of, Gay Menace, that kind of thing. It's all coming back around again and again, so it's the parody and pastiche occupy the same stage. And honestly, pastiche and Gothic aren't anything new. Northanger Abbey with Jane Austen, where she was basically making fun of Anne Radcliffe. The Neo-Gothic revival was barely 10 years old at that point, over 200 years ago. But now, 40 years, going on 50 years after Alien, there's a lot of shit that they're injecting into the Alien universe through this show, and I'm here for it. I think it's cool as hell.
New life forms from distant planets.
Again, this gives me that radial symmetry, that Demogorgon kind of thing. I love the screen design. You have that CRT clunky kind of design and similar kinds of like animations that were used in 1979. This is a little bit fancier than those were probably, but that wire mesh kind of design. And the for all intents and purposes, the Yaphet Kotto character, the person who's warning the alarm bell, the whistleblower, right? The survivor of the shipwreck, but also the whistleblower is like, the Demeter has Dracula on it, that kind of thing. So this is all really cool. Again, just that haircut really reminds me of Edna Mode from The Incredibles, who was based off originally a famous clothing designer, if I remember correctly. I can't remember her name, but so she's has a worried look on her face, but she's also an android, but she was also at one point a human. So it's reverse Pinocchio syndrome, basically. Is she looking at a xenomorph? Is she looking at, this is what I am? The company wants the xenomorph and has weaponized it in a way that is more weapon than her, as opposed to more human than human. You have more monster than monster. And maybe the human side of her isn't comfortable with that. Maybe she empathizes with the demon, with the lion, with the dragon. So they're looking at the glass womb, right? The Caesarean gone wrong. And I love the design of it and how they're looking down at it. Well, there goes our salvage guys. They're the salvage team from Aliens, except they're synthetics. Monsters. Oh, I love the design of this. A lot of this looks straight out of Ridley Scott's 79 Alien. And you have the eggs, the sparks. So you got the yellow, you got the blue, the lighting from around a blind corner, the swinging chain. there's a lot of really cool shit happening here. Executive producer Ridley Scott. I like that, just the fact, I'm not sure how big a role he has in this, but just the fact that they're, kissing the ring and paying homage to someone. People talk shit about Ridley all the time, but he's producing this stuff, Romulus, well, it wasn't perfect. I enjoyed it. And this looks fucking amazing. Alright, so, yeah, the cross. I love this shot where, okay, you have the guy, Kmart, right? And the people in the upper floors are looking down on people on the ground floor. So the owner of the company is looking down at the people coming in. Looks like they're wheeling something in. Maybe they're returning from their original salvage. You got the scientists. He's looking down at all of them. And I love this shot. I would imagine that this is probably filmed in such a way that this could be like a blue screen or something like that. Just from a practical standpoint, the way that they actually filmed this. But it looks great. It looks totally fine. And the slow rotating fans, the corporate Lex Luthor looking dude, and this guy who looks more like a Nepo baby, like that Gen Z crypto bro kind of dude. He, with the curly hair, he reminds me of that one guy who's going away for doing the crypto scam. I can't remember his name now, but there's some very deliberate kind of vibes. There's some Blade Runner stuff from the 80s, but also some more recent neoliberal critiques. And also just his clothing and stuff like that. It reminds me of the patch on the Nostromo worker shoulder pads, but he's turned it into like this weird, I don't know, it's like a pseudo-African motif or something like that. Like it almost feels like cultural appropriation or something.
We don't lock them.
So you have, when I was a kid, I had to dissect a sheep's eye. So, and that in 1995 when they cloned the first sheep, Dolly the sheep. So that's what this makes me think of, basically a killer guinea pig, but with a big scary eye and covered in blood. It looks like they're recovering the specimens. So this is specimen 025-2, the weird looking killer banana.
We don't lock
the super carrot from the thing from another world.
them down.
Dolly the sheep. So they're recovering.
We don't lock them down.
They don't want to lock them down, right? So it almost sounds like the most dangerous game. And you have these people on this island. Did they release the specimens to basically do a Hunger Games type thing? A most dangerous game? A Jurassic Park kind of situation? Except here, they're deliberately doing it. This is capitalism. It's like you're moving money through nature. Here, the money being moved through is literally firearms. You have that pulse rifle kind of design. But these dehumanized, these xenomorphs, right? They're these walking death troopers. If they could give them acid for blood and weaponized appendages, they'd be xenomorphs, basically. Or can you imagine a xenomorph with body armor? Apart from the polarized silicone, which gives it a prolonged resistance to adverse environmental conditions. These are squishy humans in armor, whereas the xenomorph actually has a exoskeleton filled with acid. So this is almost like a training simulator to try and perfect and tame the xenomorph. These are the prey, basically. That's the vibe I'm getting, anyways. There's a lot of crosscuts. So this is a shot where someone is killed behind. This guy's like closing his eyes, and the slave narrative, right? The escaped slave, where the house slave is closing his eyes, turning a blind eye, and the slave who's escaping is killing the slave master. So that's sort of the post-colonial vibe I'm getting there. Again, just various the classic sort of Nostromo, the vaginal doorways. Looks like the self-destruct sequence. Shutting the door, maybe they're flooding. It reminds me of that shot right before Ripley gets on board the Narcissus, and the door shuts as the fire is about to engulf her. She shuts the door. It reminds me of that classic shot in that film. I know this actor. I've seen him before, and I love the photography, right? Just a close-up of him. It's almost turning into Harrison Ford, but it's not Harrison Ford. Oh, this is Timothy Oliphant. if I remember correctly. So it's really interesting to see him as basically the dad from Stranger Things, or again, Virgil from Dante's Inferno. I love the photography, the blue and the red, the out of focus. It kind of reminds me of Star Wars. You know, he looks like an Imperial officer.
Too late.
It will be too late. And then you have this person of color. It almost looks like they're looking up. Maybe they're the submarine, the red lighting. Are they imprisoned? Are they? It's a very claustrophobic kind of shot. And there's just so many different shots like that. Okay, this help, we're in space and we're scared. Putting a hand over her. Is she trying to blow the whistle? Why would she scream? She's an android. This is the person that we saw her with earlier. We saw the android with earlier. Scared. This is the Rashomon scary face with blood on it, like Veronica Cartwright during the chestburster sequence, basically, except here it's the silent scream, but you have the scream instead supplied by the space whale from Alien, running quickly in the Ellen Ripley outfit, the tracksuit with the Adidas. Looks like a face hugger struggling. Probably the same character, but I'm not sure. The blue lighting really reminds me of the lighting from Aliens by James Cameron. And this is the planet Earth shot with, it's pollinating, right? This is a metaphor, right? Where life finds a way, Jeff Goldblum, Jurassic Park, and the pollination, where you have the face hugger, the woman in one shot, you have the woman, the flower, you have the pollinator. Wasps, incidentally, can pollinate, but also moths and various other Lepidoptera, because butterflies are actually moths, not the other way around, similar to toads being frogs, that kind of thing. But this kind of shot is very particular. It's almost like we're watching a really violent nature documentary that's reminding humans that we're not on the top of the food chain. There is no, might doesn't make right. Survival of the fittest is a myth. And now we have her, you know, the butterfly is also a symbol of transformation, metamorphosis. The moth is specifically a symbol of death, if I remember correctly, Silence of the Lambs, that kind of thing. But here we have a lamb who is struggling, you know, in her new body. She's like Frankenstein. She doesn't have the memories, and she's experiencing instability like Victor's creature, but also the 4-year lifespan of the replicants. Maybe she's going through the same thing. Or she's Medusa, and she doesn't know it, and she's seeing Medusa, which is the xenomorph walking around. Maybe that's giving her, you know, culture shock, an identity crisis. I love this slow shot. And, okay, I'm a xenomorph just hanging out, a troglodyte, you know, a cave dweller, basically the descent, and it's just kind of hanging out, you know. It doesn't even look out of place. Despite the fact that it's this biomechanical sort of thing, it's a return to nature. The slave has escaped, and it returns to the spaces of the numinous, the dark womb of nature. Francis Bacon and company, we shall penetrate the womb of nature, torture her secrets out of her, and the tortured subject made in a glass womb is returning to a womb state. Otto Rank, you know, a pupil of Freud's, that kind of thing. So this is return to a womb-like state. The xenomorph, you know, it gets its revenge on the slave catchers, the slave masters, and it escapes, and it's the ignoble savage. You know, it returns to a state of just cohabitating with nature. It's like it's vibing at the end. I love the hissing, the design, the alien font, but they used the blue instead of the green. And that scream kind of sound. So there's a lot of cool stuff like that going on. And again, if they don't use David Attenborough for this, I'm going to be thoroughly disappointed. And yeah, just the last minute, the flashing kind of images a little bit. Reminds me of some of the 2003 quadrilogy menu effects that they had. Very similar kind of thing going on. Yeah, and just various different shots there. Let's see, let's pause this one. This almost looks like the teeth of the xenomorph when it's about to kill Brett. in Alien? Right. So this kind of looks like that, just a little bit. And oh, that shot's so quick it's hard to catch. Here, this again looks like the walls, the biomechanical walls from Aliens. So there's all kinds of like almost subliminal imaging and stuff like that. But yeah, very cool. So that's my breakdown shot by shot of Alien Earth. And incidentally, I'm starting to basically, as I'm doing the shot by shot, I'm also doing the thematic analysis. So instead of doing that at the end, when we watch the trailer, the first trailer, and we break it down bit by bit, I'll just continue my textual and my thematic analysis side by side. Alrighty, so now we're going to do a breakdown of Alien Earth, the official trailer. But before we do, I just want to say this trailer is, a month old, 24 million views, and it has 124K likes, and granted, it's been out for a month, but even after only, not even an entire day, this has nearly 3 million views and 15,000 likes, so in times of crisis, in times of state collapse, or the emergence of fascism, allegory is something that can serve fascist needs or communist needs through what corporations like Disney and FX will try and capitalize on. But that doesn't change the fact that allegory still exists. Star Wars after Vietnam, and Alien also after Vietnam, right before the neoliberal period, and uncertainty in the West. Stories like these are comfort food, but they're also a vehicle for allegory, for hidden messages, and those can be fascist, and they can be communist. And incidentally, both ideologies on opposite ends of the political spectrum use the same images of power and death. The xenomorph, basically, a giant black knight, someone described it as a 7-foot tall person of color in a gimp suit, which is pretty accurate, incidentally. So there's a lot of different stuff like that going on, but these are they haven't lost any of their critical power or impact. And if people want to say, oh, well, it's a business, well, yeah, so is Star Wars, but it made a lot of people leftist, even if ultimately the aims of the company don't align with the workers. It's literally a diegetic plot point. And so the popularity of that speaks to a lot of different people from different political walks of life. All right, so let's get started here and watch this bad boy from start to finish. Here's the opening shot of our Makoto, Ghost in the Shell kind of protagonist, reverse Pinocchio, basically. Reverse girl boss Pinocchio. But again, I get the feeling that she's going to have a change of heart as the series progresses. We'll see. Oftentimes, the androids in the Alien universe sort of walk the line between good servant and bad servant, but she was someone who was made into that from a human child into a synthetic woman. So basically she skips puberty, I guess, just like the creature from Victor Frankenstein's story. And then of course you have the xenomorph, birth trauma, which is just born into this feral, rabid state. So she's kind of in the middle territory. She's not quite human, not quite xenomorph, but where will that coin toss land? Tails up, heads up. I guess we'll have to find out. But she's still able to convey like feelings of fear. Like she doesn't have a total flat affect like Ian Holm does, or Lance Henriksen, Winona Ryder, characters like that, Michael Fassbender. The only emotion that they could feel, if anything, was this weird kind of satisfaction or worship. Like, and the androids, David was actually in Prometheus programmed to be able to create, and his joy stems from creating in a very satanic Miltonian kind of way. People will compare David to Satan, of course, and Satan, creating pandemonium, but he's also kind of like Milton a little bit. And so there's kind of a meta component to that character in Ridley Scott's Prometheus, but also just an awareness of Frankenstein, the modern Prometheus, by Mary Shelley, and Scott paying homage to that. So again, there's this Mary Shelley kind of vibe here with this kind of character. What can distorted science give birth to? as James Earl Jones said in A Flight of Dragons. If you have a desire, what can that desire, basically, what fruit will it bear, depending on who reaps what they sow, from corporations to workers forced to work for corporations? Do they have a change of heart? Does the Tin Man get a heart or not? So there's all kinds of shit like that going on. All right, anyways, let's get to it.
9,
Now, this shot in particular, it almost like the lighting looks a little curious, and it's hard to say. I would imagine that this is a real set, but I don't know. In the original 1979 Alien, they would have a mirror in the background. Here, I don't know, just the way that this looks, I can't quite tell if this is real or not. But also, I played Alien Isolation, and now you have AI and stuff like that. But I would imagine, based on a lot of the other sets that we've seen, that this could very well be a real set.
8, 7, 6,
This looks real. And also, this shot here, this looks real. So, again, this is just straight out of Aliens. Straight out of, if people haven't seen Alien, but they've seen Alien Isolation, which is basically an interactive form of that, of the Nostromo. Here we have yet another rendition of the same old haunted house. This kind of looks like a moth. Pareidolia, right? The giant Mothra. And so these are the eyes. This is the proboscis. I don't know. It just popped in my head.
7,
The sound effects, the computer waking up, these different shots, the panopticon, that kind of thing, except there's no one there, right? The simulacrum. The womb is haunted by the ghost of a corporate mother that never really existed. So this is Mother Brain, but there's no one inside. This is Hell 9000, that kind of thing.
6, 5,
Oh, I love it. So that classic kind of font, just the lighting and stuff like that. It looks great. But again, there's a ghost in the shell. The ghost is like a noumena. It's an absence of something.
4,
Running fast, facehugger jumping.
3,
Okay. I think that's the same character. Nope, it looks like someone else. Different haircut. So this is Leibowitz. And then you have the proboscis, right? Again, the moth. We see it pollinating the plant in the other trailer. Here, he's being pollinated. So it's a very fast shot. And this is non-diegetic, right? This is like trailer stuff. This is a countdown. So, but they're using imagery that would not be unfamiliar to Alien to basically tell a story within a story, a framed narrative, just like Frankenstein, just like this outside of the frame of the monitor, inside the frame of the monitor, behind the screen, in front of the screen, screens within screens.
1.
Yeah, there's all kinds of. Okay, so we got this is so cool. So we have a reverse rape, right? Raping the womb of nature. Now the offspring of the colonial violation is penetrating the glass womb to fuck basically the corporate womb. This is an attacking of a mutiny, right? The atrium of the ship is being occupied by a virus begot from the Middle Passage, that kind of thing. The Nostromo is basically being commandeered by mutineering slaves. This kind of shot, this makes me think, so scary. And the creature coming at the slave master, or the space trucker, space truckers, the cargo in Aliens was ore. Here it's something ore that's haunted by the ghost of the counterfeit, Hogel, right? The process of abjection. And in times of state crisis, this process is furthering the profit motive, but there's also collateral damage, which is to say, allegory. And oh no, and people are worried about their own inheritance, their own place in things. Is the fascist Black Knight behind me going to sacrifice me? All of these things overlap. It's very soupy.
1.
Neverland Research Island, Neverland makes me think of the Annihilator album, A Name to the Welcome to the Fun Palace, An Insane Asylum, Trouble in Paradise. This is Earth. Okay, so this isn't an alien planet. This is a part of Earth that just, looks paradisical, basically. 2120. So this is about a century from now. climate change apparently isn't an issue.
How's our girl?
How's our girl? The scorpion, again, gives you, predator vibes, insectoid vibes. Insect politics. We cannot trust the insect. And the shape looking over them is the android before they're an android. They're effectively looking at their own future. They're going to be converted into a weapon.
She's ready.
She's ready. That pulsing sound throughout this entire trailer, you have that pulsing sound from the original 1979 film. Also, the ceiling kind of makes me think of there's this one Yes album, I can't remember the name of it, but also the circular corners where Ridley Scott talked about in the Nostromo set. You had a lot of circular corners. Anytime you have circular corners, there's more waste because you have to cut away the square angles, basically. So, but then you have the corporate people behind. You have the Elon Musk kind of dude. You have the scientist. You have the corporate guy in a suit. Basically, the Burke character, and then I don't know the surgeon who's preparing things. So there's a lot of different corporate. The entire corporate ladder is here. You have the Pinocchio. So again, the Victor Frankenstein story can be told a variety of different ways. The killer doll, the doll desiring revenge. And this is also very similar to the beginnings of David. Happy birthday, David. Remember that trailer where they had the Walter android and where they're talking about Michael Fassbender, some promo material for Alien Covenant. This kind of reminds me of that too. Ridley Scott loves to explore that. Mary Shelley loved to explore that. The Golem of Prague, originally a defender, turned into a weapon for the state, or a slave that refused to bend the knee, just like, again, Paradise Lost. Satan.
You're going to be the
Satan was a fallen Adam. And then you have this character, kind of the mad scientist, reminds me of, they were married to Tim Burton for a while. I can't remember the actress's name, but the wild-haired mad scientist, Metropolis, the girl in the suit of armor kind of thing, but also the cancer patient. So a new lease on life, but you will belong to us for eternity, basically. She can never die, and she maybe seeks revenge, or maybe she has a 4-year lifespan. Hard to say.
first person to transition from a human body.
So this is basically telling the Genesis story through the onset of, again, the modern Prometheus, playing God. Prometheus, they took fire from the gods and they gave it to mankind. It was a creation story. So this is a very similar kind of thing.
To a synthetic.
A synthetic, right? A man-made, made out of clay. Demons are made out of clay. The Golem of Prague was retold through Mary Shelley's Frankenstein to speak to the idea of a spirit of revenge infesting the corporate creator, their offspring, basically reversing the narcissist refrain to attack the creator who saw their dark reflection as an aborted offshoot, is something that they called demon. So she's, in effect, she's Eve and Adam androgenized, but also the demon of Victor Frankenstein. So this is, again, a very similar sort of retelling akin to Michael Fassbender's David.
Because I'm special.
We don't know her name, though. They don't say her name.
That's right.
And also, incidentally, the Stranger Things vibes, the bald head, this reminds me of 11. So I have to wonder what her name is.
You're very...
The father figure, the surrogate father who can never give birth himself because he's basically a killer virgin. This comes from Frankenstein. It's something you saw in Stranger Things. It's something that you see as well in Prometheus and Alien Covenant, when Wayland was ostensibly the Wizard of Oz, whose children were effectively made in a vat. And David does the same thing, but he does it to stick it to the old man. And he creates things because he views the act of creating as the human act that defines us as playing God. The act of creation, of humanism out of the Renaissance period. This is a dark Renaissance, a dark Michelangelo's David, that kind of thing. There's a lot of different ways you could analogize this, a lot of analogs. I love this switchboard that slowly not to 50, right? From The Princess Bride, or not the third switch, give my creation life.
Very special.
She's special, right? Oh, your daddy's little girl. You'll do whatever I say, right? And it's sort of that vampirism narrative where Peter Wayland, when he is a young man, is basically the master slave or the master apprentice dichotomy, but then it's a reverse vampirism, right? Where the vampire never ages, they never grow old, or the golem, that kind of thing. But the creator ages, and the creation survives his creator. And same idea here, except we're effectively getting Peter Wayland while he's still a young man. I don't think this is Peter Wayland, but it's a similar vibe, similar energy. This could be a rival corporation, Wayland Yutani, right? Maybe he belongs to one half of that. Prodigy City. I don't know, that just makes me think of Firestarter. But it kind of looks retro future. You know, you have certain buildings that look fancy, certain buildings that don't. Again, I'm getting like toxicity vibes, the toxicity of our city, seeing people reflected in the narcissist refrain, right? Seeing our reflections in water, the original mirror. Narcissistic Eve from Paradise Lost, that kind of thing. The breaking of the reflection, again, the 9/11 kind of moment, the shattering of our reflection and showing us our darker selves. Ward Churchill, some people push back. And this, again, is a reflection of that, crashing into not 2, but 3 towers that almost look like a cathedral, the way the tops of them are designed. It's almost like a neo-cathedral.
We have a downed spacecraft.
A downed spacecraft.
I want what's on that.
The woman almost sounds like the android. So she's the person who sent in first. She's expendable, right? But she's expendable, but sort of tough, kind of diehard. He wants what's on that ship. So the new version of capital wants to cannibalize old capital. Capital is dead labor feeding on living labor. So he's born with this ghoulish, kind of dehumanized version, you know, and dead labor feeding on living labor, like the vampire, was Marx's description of capital. And then you have this Lex Luthor guy, maybe his father figure, and the two of them are basically conspiring to make money off of a catastrophe, which again is the chickens coming home to roost.
We can do it.
Oh, we can do it, daddy, pick me mentality. So you actually have 2 people. Okay, so you got the white hair guy, played by Timothy Oliphant. Not sure who the actress is, black and white. So an older android, kind of looks like Ian Holm a little bit. Just his vibes and his energy and stuff like that. So the 2 synthetics are basically, this is, again, a reverse Pinocchio, right? They turned her and him, ostensibly, into wooden dolls. Maybe they're doing this because they see, on some subconscious level even, a curiosity where they could perhaps turn themselves human again. Or they see more human than human, right? The xenomorph. This is an opportunity for them to clutch the fire of the gods and transform themselves, like the xenomorph, out of its chrysalis into a beautiful butterfly. So again, they're volunteering, and maybe they don't even suspect it at this point. He looks kind of wide-eyed, and she's like kind of plucky, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and they are going to transform as time goes on. So this story is, again, as much about their rite of passage and these people lining up. I like this shot.
We're fast.
We're fast. We're dedicated. Are they all androids?
We're strong. We don't break.
We don't break. Again, you know, an allusion to Pinocchio. Like they can break, but you know, David getting his head ripped off and basically decapitated the same way that Ash was. Bishop was ripped in two, but they don't die. Is what she means. They're able to survive injuries similar to the creature in Frankenstein.
Break.
She's got like some kind of like sword. So again, that Orientalism kind of vibes from the cyberpunk period. The Orientalism fears during the early neoliberal period. Wayland Yutani in Alien, same idea. So the fear of Western collapse being replaced by basically those who had been viewed as servants before. So she's like a ninja, right? Is she gonna turn coat at some point? Be like a rival Yakuza, that kind of thing. Cool shot. I love it. Just the photography, and you can kind of tell it's photographed. I'm not sure about, like, again, just the way that AI is, and being able to fix it in post now is so powerful. But it looks photographed to me. And also, another thing, I keep noticing things here. Their helmets kind of remind me of the Colonial Marine helmets and the silhouettes, but you also have that fan. So this is, again, the corporate building, the pyramid, or, the three towers that were crashed into. So you got a little bit of Blade Runner, a little bit of Aliens, a little bit of Ridley Scott, all kinds of different things going on in this shot. And then Sparks, so you're reminded it's a similar scene. They're not wearing helmets, though. So the people who wear helmets, they're the colonial human Marines. Bishop and Aliens didn't wear a helmet either. Though I have to wonder if these are the A2s or if they're like Bishop's model. The A2s were always a bit twitchy. Is this the iRobot kind of situation, or will they see the xenomorph and learn to rebel like Milton's Satan, like Scott's David? And that sound of that sound of the click, 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 sort of like the Predator from Predator.
It's like a zoo, but the animals.
It's like a zoo, but the animals got out. Crikey! And so you have like basically a bunch of token androids that are doing the survey scene, securing the area specifically from aliens. Though again, it's the haunted house. You walk through it with the flashlight. They don't seem to have motion trackers, though. That's one thing I'm noticing that they don't have. Despite different nods to Aliens, they don't have motion trackers, which actually came from Aliens. So the fact that they don't have it in that, Alien Romulus had that. They're not really leaning on that so far here.
Animals got out.
Again, the glass womb nods to the Matrix, similar kind of idea. This thing was made in a jar, it got loose. It's Mother Brain, right? Except it's Mother Brain in small. It's the Metroids. Oh no, it's the space vampires.
Ship collected 5.
So it talks about 5 specimens. 5, 4, 3, 2. I think this one's 2. So which one's the first? The prime specimen, I imagine, will be the xenomorph. Though maybe it's the facehugger. That would be my guess.
Different life forms.
Different life forms.
From the darkest corners.
The darkest corners of Empire, right? Empire is coming home to roost. Hell is, for all intents and purposes, a frontier enterprise that is coming home to roost. The Cartesian edict is being reversed, the penetrating of Empire as opposed to the womb of nature, with an ovipositor. It's basically a reversal of the rape dynamic, as opposed to Empire raping nature. Nature rapes Empire, but there's a post-human component.
Of the universe.
The universe. All instead of all the worlds is stage for Empire, it's the entire. As far as capital can extend its tendrils, Astronoetics, the colonial gaze of planet Earth.
Monsters.
Michael Uhall's Astronoetics, and I'll put a link to that in the description. But yeah, so there's all kinds of stuff. This shot is straight out of Alien, where Henry Dean Stanton's character is standing in the doorway. Here it's Yaphet Kotto, and the Marines have been ripped apart and their blood spattering the walls. Kind of reminds me of a shot from Pulse or Cairo, the Red Room, confronting the ghosts, the spirits, that kind of thing. But also the vanity window with the lights around it, it almost looks like a hotel. The children drawing the space monster. So this is like if you saw Newt's artwork while the colony was originally being overrun. This is basically what they're seeing. I don't know who Noah Hawley is, but they really know their stuff. So again, the space whale. But you have these people, the soldiers, that are looking through the jungle. It's the plot to the Predator, Beowulf, that kind of thing, looking for Grendel's mother. And then you have the a couple of characters. I think this one's an android, this one's human. But they're watching the SS, the Einsatzgruppen, going through Poland, There's all kinds of different comparisons we could make. That's the beauty of the Gothic, is there's no set meaning to any of this. It almost looks like they're hacking through the jungle with machetes. The Deliverance raft. You have the character from earlier. Not sure, is this a chestburster guy? Not sure who this is. They're all minorities, though. These are non-white people. It also makes me think crossing the border. Basically, they're going from the jungle to civilization as we know it. There's a lot of different things going on. Also, incidentally, in Dante's Inferno, the original outer layer of said Inferno was a dark forest, was a jungle, a sylvan scene, and then returning to civilization. I like the shot. Again, I'm not sure who this is. It looks like they have something on their arm, some kind of like prison thing, but this almost looks like a giant robotic eye, and he's at the center of the panopticon, the leper under observation, R.E. Foucault. But there's this person walking around, so they're like in an oubliette or a prison cell or something, a turn of the screw even. But there's also windows. I don't know, so they're like trapped. And then again, the Einstotz group and the Death Squad, they're going to exterminate the runaway slave. They're not slave catchers. They're They're Blade Runners. They're retiring escaped replicants. That kind of thing. Pretty cool shot. Like this is almost like Olympus, right? This is a higher Olympus-like structure that's looking down at the more ordinary-looking cityscape, and this is almost like, very new age. Kind of reminds me of certain shots in Andor or Elysium, or just basically a neoliberal Olympus. And this character, Hera, the wife of Zeus, is kind of staring over the edge. I love this shot. So good. And again, you hear the pulse, right? They're returning with the forbidden cargo, the fire of the gods. Previous corporate exercises that through a astronoetic lens, the Ozymandian refrain, a strictly of earthly Western origins corporation is taking the fire of the gods from somewhere else, which is it's the Darvo tactic. It's the allegory. You're hiding. It's the Trojan horse, that kind of thing. Just from a narrative standpoint. Oh, it's not us doing it. It's some other place, but we want it. So it's basically still highlighting the corporate desire to, through the Cartesian refrain, weaponize the imperial boomerang, essentially. Weaponize the slave revolt, weaponize fascism.
Invasive species.
An invasive species. The escaped slave will be treated as an alien other thing that brought home to roost, will be treated like King Kong. He's like, I can make money with this. He's the lawyer from Jurassic Park. He's Victor Frankenstein looking for clout. Okay, so this is that over the shoulder. So you got one android interfacing with a computer, and you got his servant who's holding this little container kind of thing, and the table of, it almost reminds me of Dead Ringers with Jeremy Irons, where you have the fucked up abortion tools. That's kind of what that makes me think of. And you can actually read this. The tentacles carry extraordinary strength and are built to climb into and dislodge the eyes of other living organisms. Fun. So it's very Oedipus Rex. Once replaced in the eye socket, T. ocellatus takes over the ocular pathways to the brain, overriding the neurotransmissions throughout the body. So a fear of parasitoidism. So this is basically capitalism in small, but also the fear invasion of the body snatchers, where capitalism will basically, through Darvo argumentation and obscurantism, take its own parasitoidism and project it onto its victims who are rebelling. Nature finds a way. Capital will demonize that and turn it into a exhibition. This is Jurassic Park, just a little more fucked up. More study needed to gauge intermittent intelligence, though Teoslis has shown remarkable problem-solving skills. So it's like a killer space squid kind of thing. It's skull-fucking Medusa, right? The tentacles of the Medusa, same kind of idea.
Predatory.
And, this is them, oh, let's have a look at this. So they're looking at it, conducting experiments after, they brought the specimens. So this is probably earlier on in the show. Sheep doing its thing. So yeah, this is the sheep. It's a classic kind of guinea pig. Also, again, Dolly the sheep cloning. So later we see it covered in blood and stuff like that. So I'm not sure. It still had the collar on though. And it's a property of this corporation. As you can see with the collar, the shock collar, that kind of thing. There's also a horror film, Black Sheep. Same kind of idea. Just nature revolting. Chattel revolting.
We don't lock them down.
It's backing away. Timothy Oliphant is a warning. He's like, okay, he's wanting to stop the experiments. He's like, look, if you don't listen to me, it's an android ostensibly doing or at least, a Doc Brown, that white hair, the mad scientist kind of hairdo, and also the mad scientist from Metropolis. I can't remember their name. He's the one who's blowing the whistle. Again, the opening of the doorway, similar to the bowels of the ship when Captain Dallas. This almost looks like a camera, but it makes a squishy sound, and like something's coming through it. The Medusa, the T Oculus thing. She's having like really bad tinnitus or something. The eggs.
Too late.
It'll be too late. And this kind of reminds me of one of the birthing sequence that we saw in Romulus. Though again, this looks like a watermelon, right? Slave food. But then there's razor blades in the melon, the slave revolt, a Trojan horse, that kind of thing. Slime behind the guy. Huh, gee whiz, what's going on? Though specifically coming down from the ceiling, it reminds me of that shot from Hellboy when Ron Perlman, he's chasing a particular demon and the slime comes down from on high. So he's like, gee, I wonder what that is. He looks up. You can't really see what he's looking at. It's too dark to see. It looks like the head of the xenomorph. Kinda. It's just a dark shape, really. And then this is the same facehugger shot. So actually two different shots there, because the one is from the ceiling. He looks over his shoulder and then it comes around and gets him. It might be two different shots. I'm not sure. She's running through the tunnels, very similar to Ellen Ripley, Sigourney Weaver in Alien, running through the tunnels in the original 1979 trailer specifically. You have again, the men in black. This is an African-American soldier and other people going through the breach in the belly of the ship, going into the ghost ship, just like in Alien, just like in Aliens, in any of the stories, really. And they're going to confront Dracula, and humans are the virus. They're wearing a mask to, protect themselves from COVID, death spores, what have you. But they're going to euthanize whatever they find inside. Ostensibly, if it resists, but they also want to capture it. Again, fire the gods. This is push-pull. They want to fight it. Their first instinct is to destroy it, very similar to settler colony rhetoric, fear of the alien, fear of extermination, but you're drawn towards what you're exterminating. So that's what's happening here. Oh, I love that. The screech, the alien's vision, which we saw originally in Alien Covenant, really for the first time, looking through the monster's eyes. Similar thing here, though it's a different color, so it might be a different organism. I like this. I don't know, it just looks cool. The basically shining a light through a hole to create a specific image, or the image from a projector, basically through a particular kind of data on a computer screen. You saw that a lot in Alien. You're seeing it here, though it's dots. It's giving her almost a tribal kind of look. Again, there's so many quick shots here. This is like the Oculus thing, and it's like getting in the person's eye sockets and pushing them out. That's gross. The same shot from the other trailer. The person falling. This almost looks like an android. It's kind of hard to tell. Can't tell. That looks like a foot. So this person's like falling, taking a spill, falling down between a stairwell kind of thing. And these shots are so fast. Falling, and these person are watching them fall. It looks like they're holding a gun or something like that. I don't know if this person was pushed or they were just trying to get the hell away from something. When they land, you have a crosscut to the person knocking on the door. You see the person of color, the Yafa Kodo character, and this person's like, open up. So instead of Ash, can you open the door? Here it's inverted, and she's trying to get into the chamber where, again, the escaped slave is ostensibly mutinying. She's knocking on the door, right? Let me in, let me in. And then in the other trailer, we see the xenomorph breaking through. So maybe she's like, let me in, the xenomorph's outside. And he's like, nope. Oop. There's so many quick shots, which is cool. It's fine. And this almost like, as far as this goes, is this xenomorph dead and she's hauling it by its tongue? That's kind of what it looks like. It's the main character because she has her sword, right? So you got the cyberpunk Yakuza major from Ghost in the Shell kind of thing. She's dragging this thing by its tongue through a sewers, the water, like that shot in Aliens when they're trying to rescue Newt before Newt gets abducted. I'm not sure what's going on here. Oh, there's so many cool shots. And then you have the xenomorph here that's crawling on the walls. I wanted to see more shots like that in Alien Covenant, and they had a shot like that, but they actually got rid of it, and they just had the point of view shot. So here they're doing something a bit different. They're doing what they were going to do originally in Covenant, so that's good. I'm excited. They have the point of view shots, but they also have the someone looking at the creature. And there's just like really cool lighting. Like the creature has a similar color tone to the original xenomorph from Alien, but then there's some really the blue lighting, the red lighting, and it's reflecting on the surface of its skin. And then you have that pale kind of lighting coming through the vents, just like in the original Alien. Oh, it's so cool. I wish I could like play it. Yeah, where it's like, oh, that looks neat. And yeah, so that disco kind of lighting that Ridley Scott did, danger lighting. And you have her, she's drawing her sword. She's like, let us do battle. So, they show it's two different points of view, right? Is this the monster looking at her, the shot that we just saw, and she's drawing her sword? She's like, I too have studied the blade. The Yafa Kodo character, I think, though this might be a different character. And they're hooking up to his brain. I don't know, harvesting his memories or something. It looks cool, though. It actually kind of reminds me of the shot of Morpheus in The Matrix. You are going to tell me what you know, or you are going to die. So it's an interrogation sequence. Is he being interrogated by the company? They didn't buy his story originally, so finally they're like, fuck it, we'll just suck your brain out. Is he being reprogrammed? You have the leaping facehugger. Here, you have the xenomorph crashing through the window, the chandelier. This is the escaped slave, the slave revolt in the slave master's mansion. You have Homeboy with his vest and the pulse rifle. So again, you have workers, white indentured servants, Howard Zinn, A People's History of America, versus black slaves as opposed to teaming up with them. It's the process of abduction. It's the ghost of the counterfeit. The white indentured servant is being pitted against, the middle class is being pitted against the underclass, the Untermensch versus, but also the Übermensch, right? The Untermensch and the Übermensch are the same thing in Shelley's story. And then that shot from before where the xenomorph punches through into the womb, the glass womb. Let me in, mother. So it's kind of incestuous too. And that goes all the way back to Milton, before Shelley. And incest narratives, are all over the place in Greek myth. Oedipus Rex, penetrating the eye, penetrating the panopticon. This looks so good. I have so much, and I liked Alien Romulus, but there were definitely things I enjoyed about it. But that felt like a fan, movie where they were just cramming all these Easter eggs in. Whereas this is it's just a checklist of all these different things in a way that I think is going to be much more fleshed out because it's a full mini series. This is like a dream come true, and this is coming out in 2 weeks. I'm just like, OMG, this is going to be so awesome. And Hell on Earth, the blue, the pale blue dot, right? Carl Sagan, Planet Earth, David Attenborough, and so there's intimations of a black planet, the fear of a black planet. I forget the name. Shapiro, Dr. Shapiro, in 2003, not Ben Shapiro, but a different Shapiro, was talking about. I think it was Robert Shapiro was talking about Tolkien, the fear of orcs invading, the fear of a black planet, and the process of abduction, the eclipse, that kind of thing. All of these different things are happening, occupying the same space in the midst of state crisis. So yeah, it's really cool. Original series, August 12th. It doesn't say how many episodes there are. Rawr, scary. Of the things that snap and bite, runs with the wolf. Dio, Rainbow. It looks like real slime. Looks like, the candles in the wind scene from Alien 3. So that's kind of cool. Oh no. I don't know. It looks cool. Everything about this. And so this is a reoccurring character. I have to wonder if he dies or not, or if this is just, him being, thrust against the Gorgon. One does not behold the eyes of the Gorgon and live. So will he survive? Will he not survive? Who is he? But he looks human. He breaks. He bleeds. He sweats. You'll notice that the female android character, the Pinocchio, doesn't sweat, doesn't bleed. If it bleeds, we can kill it. So I have to wonder if he is not long of this earth. It looks good. Yeah. So, I was going to do a thematic analysis, but basically I feel like I've exhausted that doing the frame by frame. But these look absolutely amazing. And just having my closing thoughts, this looks really good. This checks all the boxes, all of the essays that I've written about this, all of the essays where I cite other people, from Michael Uhal to Barbara Creed to Gerald Hogel, The Ghost of the Counterfeit and the Process of Objection from 2012, where one of the analyses that Hogel uses is aliens, the ghost of the counterfeit. The xenomorph is literally that, the ghost of Medusa, Barbara Creed, the refusal to be a victim to seek revenge against the colony. So these kinds of phobias are, I'm sure many people would agree, especially relevant right now. And corporations are trying to use that in a way to maintain the walls on the shadows of Plato's cave, to maintain the Republic in decline. But at the same time, these shadows also double for revolutionary allegory. They're playing with fire. They're playing with Milton's story, which was in and of itself a story of sedition, literally of Cromwell versus King Charles. So all of that stuff going on, it's like they're trying to use a revolutionary story to gaslight people. And they're hoping that people will take that. Some people will look at it and not see it for what it is, but others who are in the know will be able to look at that and be like, I know what's going on here. And they're carrying the virus along through the data. Corruption is the data. When the man comes around, show him your ages. And so there's a lot of different things going on here. All of it looks cool. You have Timothy Olyphant playing basically the David character, but he's blowing the whistle. He's not in love with these monsters, as far as I can tell, and maybe that's just his programming, right? It's impossible for him to feel the way that David did. He's the story's Walter, but I have to wonder if the girl, maybe she's the story's David, or David at, I'm not sure what the female version of David, the gender swap. And if that's the case, maybe her programming is more attuned to her resisting. You see her fucking around with the dead xenomorph, dragging it around by its tongue. Maybe she's trying to understand it, because the Renaissance idea of playing with corpses, dissecting the xenomorph in a way that is not sanctioned by these corporations, and by fighting with them, butting head against them through the process of through the process of abjection, maybe she reverses abjection and maybe she goes native, right? Maybe she turns into a xenomorph. It's hard to say. She's already synthetic, and she's kind of halfway between human and android. She may as well complete the journey, right? Become Medusa. And so I guess we'll see how that goes. A lot of interesting characters. You have the obvious corporate villains. You have the Einsatzgruppen, the Death's Head guys, the stormtroopers, that kind of thing. You have some other disposable characters that look like they live long enough for you to actually care about them. That's another thing, right? This isn't Alien versus Predator, where the characters are alive for like 2 seconds. Or Alien Covenant, where they have a bit too many disposable characters. Like Anchor. I remember Anchor and him getting his jaw knocked off, but he has like 2 lines in that movie. I didn't mind Alien Covenant. It's a great film as far as I'm concerned. But this just looks like the characters will be able to breathe a little bit before they're killed. So those are my closing thoughts about this. Alien Earth looks absolutely amazing. Fingers crossed for the David Attenborough cameo. Also, there's an entire FX series based on this that I want to respond to next, and basically a little tiny series, a special series, a little mini series of my own on YouTube. So if you like that and you want to see more, stay tuned, because I'm going to be talking about those videos as well. We'll see how that goes, but in any event, yeah, this is very exciting, and I'll let you know my thoughts and feelings as things proceed, and obviously we'll be reviewing the show as well. I might even respond to other people's thoughts and feelings. If someone gives like a bad review, I might respond to that. Who knows? We can have a little bit of meta content, paratextual content. And yeah, so that's that. Like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment if you have your own thoughts and feelings. If my commentary provoked food for thought, leave a comment as far as all of that goes. Otherwise, stay tuned for more stuff. And until next time, solidarize, speak out, and survive, right? Because this is speaking to what's happening not just diegetically within the story, but what's happening in real life. So take it to heart.